You have already decided how much money you're going to lose tonight. Not the casino, you. The moment you sat down at that blackjack table or fed a 20 into that slot machine, a mathematical formula, built decades ago by men in short-sleeved shirts with calculators, already determined the outcome of your entire evening. You just don't know it yet, and neither does almost anyone else walking across that carpet. Here's the number that explains everything: 5.26%. That's the house edge on American roulette, the tiny sliver of every dollar bet that mathematically belongs to the casino before the wheel even spins. It sounds small. It is not small. Multiply that sliver across a casino floor processing millions of bets a day, and you get an industry that generates over $200 billion a year worldwide, with a level of financial predictability most Fortune 500 companies would kill for. Casinos don't gamble. You do. They just built a building around your decision to understand how that building works. Picture a Tuesday night in Macau, the gambling capital of the world, a city that generates more casino revenue in a single year than the entire Las Vegas Strip earns in 3. A high roller, the kind of player casinos call a whale, sits down at a private baccarat table with a credit line worth more than most people's homes. The casino comps his flight, his suite, his meals, treats him like royalty. Then he wins. Big. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single night. The pit boss smiles. The floor manager smiles. Nobody panics. Why would they? They already know something the whale doesn't fully feel in the moment. Play long enough, and the math always wins the war, even when it loses the occasional battle. That math has a history. The first modern casinos opened in 17th century Venice, gambling halls built to keep nobility entertained during carnival season. Even then, the house understood something brutally simple. Let people bet freely with truly fair odds, and eventually someone walks out with all your money. So they tilted the game. Not obviously. Not enough for anyone to feel cheated. Just enough that across thousands of spins, thousands of hands, thousands of nights, the house always came out ahead. That tilt is the house edge, and once it was discovered, it never left. Every game on the floor is really just a different version of that same tilt, dressed up in different clothes. Blackjack, played with perfect strategy, can carry a house edge as low as 0.5%, which is why serious players gravitate toward it. Keno, on the other end of the spectrum, can carry a house edge above 25%, which is why casinos are happy to let you play it for free. But here's the part almost nobody clocks. In Las Vegas, slot machines and electronic gaming dominate the revenue mix. In Macau, the picture flips entirely. Table games, especially baccarat, do the heavy lifting, because that's the game high-rolling players from mainland China overwhelmingly prefer. Same industry, same core math, two completely different machines built to extract it. Slots deserve their own chapter, because they're not really games of chance anymore. They're behavioral experiments wearing flashing lights. Every time the reels line up two matching symbols and miss the third by a single space, your brain lights up almost the same way it would if you'd actually won. That's called a near miss, and it is not an accident of random chance. Slot machines are deliberately engineered to produce far more near misses than pure randomness would ever create on its own, because researchers studying gambling behavior have found that a near miss keeps players in their seat almost as effectively as an actual win does. The machine was never trying to make you win. It was trying to make you feel like you almost did. Everything else around you is built on the same principle. The absence of clocks and windows, the oxygen-rich air pumped through the ventilation system to keep you alert, the free drinks, which are not hospitality, they're a calculated cost, because a slightly impaired gambler makes slightly worse decisions and plays slightly longer. The maze-like floor plan that makes leaving feel like an accident you have to work for. None of it is decoration. All of it is designed, tested, and refined by people whose entire job is extending the average number of minutes you spend within reach of a bet. Now, whales like the one in Macau aren't just a fun anecdote. They're the actual center of gravity for the world's biggest casino resorts. A handful of high-value players can generate more profit in a single trip than an entire floor of tourists combined over a month. That's why casinos will comp private jets, penthouse suites, and multi-million-dollar credit lines to attract them. It looks insanely generous. It's actually insurance. The casino is betting, correctly, that across enough sessions the house edge grinds down even the deepest pockets in the room. Occasionally a whale wins 7 figures and walks out smiling. The casino smiles too, because it already knows the odds guarantee that whale will be back. None of this comes cheap to run. A major Las Vegas resort can cost anywhere from $1 to $10 billion to build. Thousands of employees keep the floor moving, from dealers to pit bosses to the security teams watching every table through a surveillance network the industry nicknames the eye in the sky. Licensing fees alone can run into the tens of millions depending on the jurisdiction. And increasingly, the gambling floor is only part of the business. On the Las Vegas Strip today, roughly 2/3 of total revenue now comes from non-gaming sources. Hotel rooms, restaurants, nightclubs, concerts, shopping. The casino floor still anchors the building, But it's no longer the entire business model. It's the engine room inside a much bigger entertainment machine. That shift matters because the industry is not as invincible as the math makes it look. Card counters in blackjack, if skilled enough, can genuinely tilt the odds back in their own favor, which is exactly why trained staff quietly watch for the pattern and ask suspected counters to leave. Online gambling has forced traditional casinos to compete with an app on someone's couch. And political risk is real, not theoretical. When Chinese authorities cracked down on junket operators and high roller channels into Macau starting around 2014, gross gaming revenue there collapsed from over $36 billion a year to a fraction of that within half a decade, a stretch made even worse by pandemic lockdowns that pushed some months in 2022 down to levels not seen since the early 2000s. Macau has since clawed most of the way back, with 2025 revenue projected above $30 billion again, but the lesson stuck. Even an industry built on guaranteed math can be brought to its knees by a government policy or a global shutdown it never priced into the model. So after the construction costs, the staffing, the comps, the near misses, the whales, and the occasional catastrophic downturn, what's actually left over? A single well-placed slot machine can generate anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 in annual profit depending on location and foot traffic. Multiply that across a floor holding 2,000 or 3,000 machines, and slots alone can produce hundreds of millions of dollars a year for one resort. Add table games, hotel revenue, and VIP programs, and the largest resorts on Earth post annual revenues in the billions, with margins most industries would consider fiction. Which brings us back to that Tuesday night in Macau, and the whale walking out a winner, and the pit boss smiling anyway. He wasn't smiling because he lost the hand. He was smiling because he'd already won the war, long before the cards were dealt, in a spreadsheet built decades before either of them sat down at that table. That's the actual business of a casino. Not chance, not luck, certainty dressed up to look like a coin flip.